Right, so I come across a video by History Debunked this morning. I didn't even need to watch it. But I gave up on it after about 2 minutes because I knew exactly how it was going to go. History Debunked, I think Simon is his name, is a shill. If you haven't figured this out, I've put together various video clips from across YouTube that he could have accessed himself. So he's either turning a blind eye or he's on a payroll of somebody. I would much more lean towards the latter because he's called History Debunked. So you'd think he'd look at these other video clips and be able to put it together that there's a certain demographic that's working against the interests of Western Europe, and they're not even hiding it anymore. So, yeah, here we go.
Hello again. One of the ways in which I regularly fall out with some of those who in general support my stance here is that I resolutely reject the idea that immigration is part of a coherent and overarching plan to subvert our way of life and indeed our very identity. There are various theories which posit this idea as the simplest explanation for the fact that 1 million foreigners a year settled in Britain last year. Surely such a great migration of people from Asia and Africa must be planned. I am always sceptical of secret plans which affect millions of people and yet somehow manage to remain out of the newspapers and television. The number of people who must be involved and the scale of the operation which it would entail, and yet not one whistleblower or single document being leaked or coming to light. The security around such a scheme would have to be more strict than the project to develop the atomic bomb. For those who do not know what I'm talking about, I should explain that there are those, and some of them comment here, who think that some greater conspiracy exists. The details vary, but it usually involves Jews.
There we go. Okay, so I'll let you just finish off.
Flood Europe with black people and those of South Asian heritage. This idea goes by several names, such as the Kalergi Plan or the Great Replacement. My experience teaches me that secrets seldom remain.
Yeah. Keep on going. Right, so let's switch to America. A Jewish professor, academic at Massachusetts School, Noel Ingerteeth. Thankfully, he's dead now. There we go.
Is doing away with whiteness. Whiteness is a form of racial oppression. Sure. The suggestion is that it's somehow possible to separate whiteness from oppression, and it is not. There can be no white race without the phenomenon of white supremacy. If you abolish slavery, you abolish slaveholders. In the same way, if you abolish racial oppression, you do away with whiteness. Treason to whiteness is loyalty to humanity.
Your views are fairly well received in academia.
Yes, they're legitimate. Not to say that everyone agrees, but sure. I could not point to any examples where it has provoked political censorship. Whiteness is an identity that arises entirely out of oppression. Whiteness is not a culture. It's not a religion, it's not a language, it's simply an oppressive social category. Blackness is an identity that can be plausibly argued. Black studies is a study of a people that has formed itself in resistance to its oppression. The task is to bring this minority together in such a way that it makes it impossible for the legacy of whiteness to continue
to reproduce itself. Now let's switch to the former US President, Joe Biden, who has been in charge for the last 5 years.
Not only our Muslim communities, but African communities, Asian communities, Hispanic communities, and the wave still continues. It's not going to stop, nor should we want it to stop.
It's not organized though.
As a matter of fact, it's one of the things I think we can be most proud of. So there's a second thing in that black box, an unrelenting stream of immigration, non-stop. Folks like me who are Caucasian of European descent, for the first time in 2017, will be in an absolute minority in the United States of America. Absolute minority. Fewer than 50% of the people in America, from then and on, will be white European stock. That's not a bad thing. That's a source of our strength.
So that's the American president. Now let's move. Who should we go for? Let's go to the UK. So this is Keir Starmer addressing that the Conservatives, obviously, it's two sides of the same coin. Labour, Conservative. They've both got the same policies, really, just a bit different on economics. I won't get dragged into it, but here's it addressing
The
that.
Independent Office of National Statistics has conducted vital work on the state of immigration and found the previous government were running an open borders experiment.
Not organised.
As the ONS sets out, nearly 1 million people came to Britain in the year ending June 2023. That is 4 times the migration levels compared with 2019. Time and again, the Conservative Party promised they would get the numbers down. Time and again, they failed.
Yeah, because you'll get the numbers down, won't you? Now let's go to Sweden. Famous little clip, Barbara Spector. I don't know, some Jew works in Sweden.
As we heard, there are people in Sweden who support Israel and have a deep sense of the injustice of the present situation. It's these people who give hope to those who still believe that things will get better here. One of them is Barbara Spector, a former American who made Aliyah and then 10 years ago, with the help of the government of Sweden, set up a non-denominational institute of Jewish learning with the Greek name of Paideia here in Stockholm. She believes the current wave of anti-Semitism in Sweden will pass and that Jews have an important role to play in a country undergoing profound change.
I think there's a resurgence of anti-Semitism because at this point in time, Europe has not yet learned how to be multicultural. And I think we're going to be part of the throes of that transformation, which must take place. Europe is not going to be the monolithic societies that they once were in the last century. Jews are going to be at the center of that. It's a huge transformation for Europe to make. They are now going into a multicultural mode, and Jews will be resented because of our leading role. But without that leading role and without that transformation, Europe will not survive.
In their own words.
Mode. And Jews will be resented because of our leading role.
Yeah, Simon, clear your ears out one more time.
Mode. And Jews will be resented because of our leading role.
Right, that's her. I know you've done a video shitting for her. Let's go to Jerry Springer over in America, the leader of destroying American culture and morals in his own words.
Politics is my religion. It's not my only, I'm Jewish, but I mean, it's like a religion to me. I am the father of the destruction of Western civilization. I have done that. But frankly,
the admission right here.
And he's Jewish.
Been around for a couple of thousand years. I think we got to give Eastern civilization a shot. You know, we've done it. Well, yeah, I'm proud of my show. Why wouldn't I be? But I apologize. I've ruined the culture. I just hope hell isn't that hot because I burn real easy. I'm very light complected.
I'm very lucky. You know, I happen to make my living in front of a lot of people, and people treat me beautifully, and I get paid handsomely, and you know, I've been lucky enough to have the #1 show in America. I mean, gosh, this is a gift from God. This is a gift from God.
Just to make sure I give him his credit as well, that's a guy called White Stag who's put that video together. Brilliant YouTuber. How long he'll last, I don't know, because he's speaking the truth, and he ain't shilling because he doesn't have any adverts on his channel. He's not doing it for the money. English lad as well. Who else we got? Bill Maher and Sharon Osbourne.
In 1984, I remember walking around London.
Oh, and just to add, what's the chance? They're both Jewish. Bill Maher and Sharon Osbourne, both Jewish.
But in 1984, I remember walking around London like it was all white. It was all white.
The horror.
But you go outside of London now, but now it's totally changed.
It went from, I read this in Andrew Sullivan's column, it went from, in 50 years, it went from 86% white to 36% white. Now, this is not a complaint. See, if we were conservatives, this would be like a lament. Great.
It's a fact.
It's a fact, and it's a happy fact.
And if you can't discuss it,
just don't tell me we're living in a year we're not living in. We're living in the year when London is mostly people of color.
Yes, it is.
And I'm applauding it.
Yeah.
Happy for you. Happy
Listen,
for it.
Okay.
But let's live in the year we're living in.
It's, you go to Windsor Castle, okay? And the town, of course, is called Windsor. And it used to be, when I was a kid, all English tea shops with...
Sorry, I've just got to wipe the lens. 1 second.
China, and everybody used to go there for afternoon tea, and you'd go to Windsor Park and watch some polo. And now, you go around there, there's no more fucking tea shops.
Right.
None of that.
Right.
It's Arabic restaurants, it's Jamaican restaurants, it's Chinese. It is a complete and utter melting pot, and it's great.
And it's great. And there's always going to be some people, and we can't hate them for it, who remember the tea shop, and that's their memories of their youth, and where they first fell in love or whatever, and so they're going to be nostalgic for it. And that you can't hate them because in the Brexit vote.
Sorry about the quality there. I had to clean the internal lens. It was the other side of the lens.
There was a lot of that. People said that. People who lived in England their whole life. And the old village green England's
the traditional things have gone.
Right.
But we still have the royal family that is way too traditional. It's way too. I love them, but they're way too traditional. It needs to cut back on the shit.
My message to those people is always, sorry, but that's life on Earth. Things change.
Nothing stays the same.
Nothing stays the same.
If you stay the same, you're left behind.
And no one was ever
asked
asked.
to change. But you can't just stand there in the middle of the street and go, stop! I am standing athwart change. It just doesn't work that way. Change is going to come, and it's going to roll over you. It's how you deal with it.
That's right.
You can move. You'll have to, maybe. It's sad. Maybe it would be a better choice to try to adapt to what's new.
It's like Barbara Spector says at the end of that video, Europe won't survive, and Sharon Osbourne's pushing a similar message, and you wonder why people end up hating them. They've been kicked out of Europe, I think, 100 times over history, and it's always the same reason, because of this. They infiltrate institutions and bring them down. That's what we do. And I had a little look down through the comments, and I come across a good one by Chicken Lamp Brent. So in the late 1970s, when I was in my mid-teens, my father was advised by someone who, shall we say, had pretty high security clearance within the government, UK government this is. He said in the next few decades, there will be a massive social engineering experiment in the UK, and it was going to be no place to bring up his son. So I've watched what's happened across the pond, it's obviously in America, in the decades since. He was right, and I'm so grateful we got out. But this decline has been a long time in the making. Somebody obviously has a plan, but for the life of me, I can't figure it out beyond the obvious globalist goals. Maybe it's no more complicated than that, but I strongly suspect that something is rotten in Denmark. Something darkly Orwellian. And I'll quickly show you this, where is it? George Orwell. What would be the chance he used a black hand shaking a white hand for his logo for 1984. This was made in 1948, don't forget. So long in the plan. Sorry, I have to keep taking the lens off because it keeps steaming up for some reason. George Orwell also wrote something along the lines about the easiest way to destroy people is to dismantle their own understanding of their history. Obviously, as you can see, and if you've got people like Noel Ingerteeth inside the
oppression.
If you've got people like that running the universities and colleges, no wonder people come out so messed up. Returning to that comment that I come across, where is it? So there's a good reply as well. So someone put, I agree. A couple of years ago I had a conversation with a source who had security access at the top level in the UK, who told me we are deliberately kept at a hair's breadth from anarchy. A finely tuned exercise in keeping the masses on a knife edge of fear, brackets control, and reacting with nothing to lose, no control, in brackets. I am glad to be wise to it, but incredibly difficult to live alongside day to day. It's a relief to escape to the mountains regularly where the natural order of things remains unchanged. I can relate to that. He sounds a bit like Winston Smith, to be fair, in 1984. So yeah, I think I've showed enough clips and evidence there, them talking in their own words. I'm sure if I could be bothered and dig deeper, I'd find even more. But there's enough evidence there of them bragging about what they've been up to in their own words. Yeah, so Mr. Simon, I'd say yourself, along with Nigel Watson, you're nothing more than shills. You both defend the tribe, even though the tribe is more than evidently bragging about what they've done. And that's before even showing the adverts pushing miscegenation. I've got to include, today I was down my local park, and no English kids, but there's a group of about 6-7 African and Pakistani sort of looking kids playing football. I know people might say, oh, what's the big deal with that? That's the future, don't forget. They're the future demographics. That's quite worrying that there's barely any English kids around now. It's mainly foreigners, Africans, Asians. And also looking around, the usual interracial mixings going on a mass scale, the usual English pissheads who just don't seem to give a shite about much, obviously was going on last night. I mean, you might well be going into 2025, all Happy New Year and all that, but it's the same shit. Everything's going on as normal. And this dystopian nightmare is unfolding as I'll make this video still, regardless of how much you celebrated New Year. It's a tiny little bonus as well. I've had to yet again take the lens off. I don't know what's going on with it. But I'll just continue with Jerry Springer because he does carry on.
So everything that the Liberals ultimately beat the Conservatives on in time will become mainstream, and you won't even consider it liberal anymore.
Jerry Springer.
I could view the election of Trump.
Both Jews. She's that smug British presenter. Prince Andrew, I bet she'd love doing that interview that she's famous for, because they obviously want to bring down the royal family because, like Sharon Osbourne says, far too traditional. Although obviously I'm not condoning what Prince Andrew did, and I'm not that big a fan of the royal family because they've stayed quiet as all of this has been going on.
As basically white America's last stand against multiculturalism. There were a lot of people that just see the whole world moving away from them. They see all this globalization. They see their kids dating someone of a different religion or a different race. They see gay marriage is suddenly okay. They see all these things happen. They see the music. They see the television shows. They see everything moving to the left. And how do they stop it? How do they stand up and say, we've had enough? And when you look at where Trump's votes came from, they literally came from communities where there are no Hispanics living, where there are no blacks living, where there are no Muslims living. So how did these people even feel threatened by multicultural America? It's just, they want to say, time out to this liberalization of the country.
Yeah, and that video that he carries on with is fantastic. It just shows you basically Jerry Springer's show was a design to bring down traditional American values. Similar to the Jeremy Kyle show, I guess, but Jeremy Kyle, I looked him up, I can't find any Jewish ancestry, but yeah, I think I've made my point. I'm not saying it's just nothing but the Jews, but they are extremely involved in bringing down Western civilization. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. So I won't say any more. It's up to you to, I put myself on the line enough with this video. But my main point I want to finish on, Simon, History Debunked, is a gatekeeper. He's a shill, in my opinion. How could you not possibly watch this video and conclude that he's not? It's so out in the open. You only have to look at the historical evidence of him getting kicked out. Longshanks, Edward I, he kicked them out. He kicked the tribe out because they were getting too heavily involved in finance and conducting usury. So they were charging interest. You wonder why every country is pretty much riddled with debt. Well, look at the banking dynasties. Who's running all of them? Who's being a good hint. But yeah, that'll do. Cheers.